Sanjo's mother had left, and he was in Gym 13. Coach Braddock was letting him use one of the laser pistols as long as he didn't bother any of the students playing a half-court basketball game. While the other students took turns playing and resting, Sanjo was blowing off steam, firing at the same target over and over. Orion monitored him, calling out the score every time he hit the target. A few other students joined in too, but not with the solid dedication that Sanjo had. The voice in his head had been relentless since the picnic. He was confronting it, saying the same thing it said while he fired at the target. Short. 100. Messy. 100. Lazy. 50. Child. 10. Sanjo, perhaps you should switch to your left hand if you wish to continue, Orion recommended. Sanjo switched hands and began firing again. Did that voice really say all that just now? Orion asked, fairly concerned at this point. Yup. Sanjo nodded but wore a crazy little smile. Perhaps we should go see Prof. Orion was cut off. I don't want to see Professor Silvestri. Sanjo looked at Orion seriously. She wanted Emily, then Cassie, then asked me to carry her. I'm pretty sure she kissed me, all in the time it took for a lightning bolt to hit me in the face. She thinks it's funny how she teases me. That's okay, I know where she wants to go, Sanjo explained quickly, tucking the laser pistol into his pants, hiding it from anyone else. Orion flickered. The woods, he asked, and Sanjo nodded. Sanjo left the gym with the pistol. We gotta find Jason too. We have to tell someone in case we fail or are captured. He slapped his fist onto his hand, determined. Orion was certain something would go wrong, but if they told a teacher or the wrong person, then he and Sanjo might never know how a woman could be in a lightning bolt and enter a mind. The theories were far-fetched. Sanjo's plan would have to wait for the cover of darkness. That night, Orion would do his best to brief him and choose appropriate equipment. Orion was into the adventure. Jason and Sanjo met in the laundry room. It was late, and Sanjo had loaded a washing machine to be off-center during the rinse cycle. Sanjo wanted to wear his uniform, but Orion reminded him that his mother might find out. Jason was sitting on a dryer, as he had done most of the day. You still haven't told me what this is about, Jason said. Sanjo put a finger up. Wait a second, he hushed Jason. Nova floated about the room, bored, until a loud rhythmic bang started from one of the washers and startled her. There, Jason. Now it will be more difficult for others to eavesdrop on our conversation, Sanjo said, moving close to Jason. Remember the lady I saw? He asked seriously. Yes, Sanjo. That's in your head, buddy. I think we should. Jason was cut off, just like Orion had been earlier. No, I don't want to. I have a plan. I'm going into the woods, Sanjo said, showing Jason the laser pistol. Jason sighed. He really did think Sanjo was crazy. Oh, okay. Well, how about I go with you? Jason asked, really trying to help. No. You will hold down the fort here. If I do not return, then you will come after me. Jason looked at Orion, not knowing what to think. Orion flickered. I believe Sanjo. I've spent all day with him, he tried to assure Jason. How will I know where he went if I don't follow him? Jason asked, and Sanjo handed him a crude map. The trail starts at the heart. It leads to a thing. Sanjo tried to show him, but the markings were scattered, except for the heart carved in a tree that Sanjo had drawn in great detail. Nova was curious. What are you going to do with that laser pistol anyway, Sanjo? It's harmless, she asked, fixated on it. I'm going to shoot myself in the foot with it, Sanjo answered, pointing it at Jason's leg. Jason crossed his arms, daring Sanjo to shoot him. Sanjo fired, a red pulse hitting Jason in the leg, causing him to stagger and clutch his muscle as it cramped for a second. Jason looked at Sanjo, offended. Sanjo laughed. I rigged this to fire more powerful pulses. We used to do this at the academy as a sort of prank. These pistols can't do more than this, but if I shoot myself in the foot, I can't go crazy for a second, Sanjo explained, tucking the pistol back into his pants. Jason rubbed his leg again. That's a silly plan, Sanjo. I should shoot you, he said casually. Sanjo shook his head. I thought of that too. I'm stronger than you, and it probably wouldn't matter if the pistol didn't work anyway, he explained. That brings me to my next question. Other than the observatory, have you ever climbed a fence or a tree? Sanjo asked. Not really, Jason replied. How did you get up the observatory then? It's a tough climb for anyone, and I don't think you could really do it on your own, Sanjo said seriously as the washer banged away on the rinse cycle. You bled from your nose twice, I think, and you fell something like 50 feet and onto Dr. Larkspur, and you look fine. Jason put his hands in his pockets and hung his head. I really didn't mean to, he muttered. How did you get so good at shooting? You promised to tell me, Sanjo reminded Jason. Oh, right. Professor Silvestri pointed a laser pointer in my eye, and suddenly I could do all that, Jason said, shrugging his shoulders. He didn't know anymore. I believe you, Jason, Sanjo sighed, putting his hand on Jason's shoulder. There is something Emily and I have kept from. He stopped as the washing machine next to them stopped. But it will have to wait until Sunday. Thank you for speaking with me about this very important matter. Will you please put my clothes in the dryer for me when I leave? Sanjo asked with extraordinary formality. Jason eyed Sanjo for a moment. Sure, buddy, but I still think this is crazy, Jason said, lifting the lid on the washer. Sanjo tried to be cool. This isn't crazy. This is affirmative action, the army stuff, he announced before turning around and walking out confidently. Jason rolled his eyes and moved Sanjo's laundry over to the dryer and emptied out the lint trap. That's when Jason realized he had to pay to dry Sanjo's clothes. At the bottom of Sanjo's clothes, he found a few hairbands. It was night. Coming up to the treeline, Sanjo and Orion peered into the darkness away from the school. There was no light out there. Orion had become as dim as he could. Sanjo, would you like me to light the way? Orion asked. No, stay dim. I don't want anyone to know I'm out here, Sanjo said, stepping over a bush and slowly moving forward. He took little steps until his eyes adjusted. There is a trail up ahead. We are meant to keep the entrance to the path a secret, Sanjo said, stopping at a tree and moving his hands up and down it. It should be here, Sanjo muttered. Orion was already worried and shined a small light to help. What is meant to be hidden? What should be here? Orion asked. This, Sanjo said, pointing up. I couldn't find it because I'm short. Sanjo pointed up at a high branch. Go check it out, Sanjo ordered. Orion scanned a marking on the tree. I'm not sure that it's anything, Sanjo. This is the shape of a heart, and it's very symmetrical, but it could still be a natural formation, Orion reported down to Sanjo. Okay, good enough. Go dark and come back, Sanjo said, striding a bit past the tree. It was made by a laser, I think. It's to mark this trail, Sanjo pointed. There was no trail, but there was a line of very tall grass that weaved left and right between the trees. How did you know this was here? Orion asked, trying not to get ahead of Sanjo. Sanjo walked casually down the trail. Because I'm following the woman right now. I suspect something similar was happening to Jason and Emily, but Professor Silvestri interfered. He was supposed to supervise the field trip. He was in Emily's vision at the theater. Something went wrong. I screwed up too, Sanjo said, going past a tree branch that bent back and hit Orion. The companion was annoyed, but learned to stay further back. You didn't screw up, Orion replied, trying to comfort Sanjo. Sanjo just kept moving down the trail. They were getting far away from the school. Actually, I did. I was lazy all the time, wanting to play with toys and watch cartoons, he said, turning around to face Orion. That's the kind of person I am. I'm a child, he admitted. Orion thought this was angst created by the voice in Sanjo's head. Sanjo, are you afraid of the dark? Orion tested. No. Sanjo shook his head. Are you afraid of this woman? The heights from the observatory? Being away from your mother? Orion drilled Sanjo. No, Sanjo said, looking angry at Orion. Sanjo, your teachers love toys and cartoons. The things you equate with being a child are not true. You don't cry, and you don't pout. You do all your homework and complete dangerous tasks without thinking. You are not a child. Orion finished. Sanjo wasn't sure but turned and started walking again.
If you say so, Orion.
I never felt that way. Sanjo tried to believe Orion. They stopped before a clearing. The grass there was tall, and there was a tree with its bark stripped away where a chain was tied around it. Orion and Sanjo let the silence settle. Sanjo stepped forward, pointing at the chain. Something is tied here. Let's check it out, Sanjo said, waving Orion forward. Orion shined a light and swept the tree once before a rustling sound caught his attention. Sanjo's skin crawled as the chain rattled and picked up slack. Get back, Sanjo ordered. The two of them scrambled into the woods, frightened. Sanjo ducked down and looked back. He could barely see it, but it was a pyramid-shaped companion chained to the thick tree. Orion floated away from Sanjo further into the trees. He was scared. Sanjo laid flat and watched the pyramid tug the chain and rattle it over and over, looking for whoever disturbed it. Orion, he whispered, but the companion was not there. Sanjo looked back and saw his companion visible in the brush down the trail. Sanjo motioned for him to come back, but he didn't move. He looked back at the monster. It hovered around, dragging the chain with it. It stopped and swept random areas with a wide laser. Sanjo crawled along the ground toward Orion. It was slow, but he eventually reached him. What are you doing? You are not to run away from me, Sanjo whispered harshly. Orion didn't want to speak, but managed to. That is a core grinder. He tried to explain, but trailed off. So, it's pretty dangerous to you? Sanjo asked.
Yes.
Connected to that chain, it can be pretty dangerous to you too, Orion tried to warn Sanjo. Sanjo started to snake through the grass. I just want to see what he's protecting.
You stay here, he ordered.
The grass was tall enough to keep Sanjo covered. He didn't know what the core grinder's awareness was, so he tried to stay wide of it. It took a long time, but Sanjo was wide of the core grinder. He tried to keep an eye on it through the grass. It was biased toward floating away. Not knowing what effect it might have, Sanjo drew the laser pistol. He was in range of the monster. The core grinder was beeping gently but menacingly. It disappeared beneath the grass, and Sanjo lost sight of it. He continued toward the tree, keeping his eye on the chain. He was where he thought he was supposed to be, and rolled onto his back to see up. He couldn't see what he was looking for, but the woman in Sanjo's head was up there. She wasn't laughing. She had floated into something up in there, and disappeared. Sanjo was quiet as he stood up, aware of the small faint beeps coming from the grass. Silently, he jumped up and grabbed a branch. There was a slight rustling, but Sanjo could see the core grinder. If it could see him, it wasn't reacting. He could see an object in the tree, a box, well hidden, but not very big. Climbing up to it, there was an opening he couldn't see. He looked back at the core grinder before reaching in. He didn't like the way the inside felt. It was mostly dry debris, and a web stuck to his hand. He grabbed an object and put it in his pocket hurriedly. He reached back in and felt for something else. He found a book. Some of it fell apart in his hand, but he had it. The core grinder was casually moving around, slowly beeping again. Sanjo watched as it passed right under him. It was getting fairly noisy. The beeps were not gentle. They sounded harsh and more electronic than before. There was no way to get down without the core grinder seeing Sanjo. Sanjo took aim. At first, he was going to shoot at the core grinder, but he was uncertain of what effect it would have. Seeing the chain, he had a better plan. He jumped down, landing on the core grinder's chain. The core grinder was pulled off center and fell from the air, crashing through the grass angrily, bouncing along its points. Sanjo tried to run but didn't lift his foot high enough, and it caught the chain. The core grinder quickly regained its balance and floated above Sanjo. It scanned him and descended on him aggressively. He caught it, but it was trying to smother him. Orion, he called out, and the monster mimicked the sound. It was getting heavy, and foggy mist was coming off the monster. Sanjo had dropped the pistol. Orion was being as brave as he could. He had heard Sanjo and came right up to the edge of the monster's range, rapidly blinking a light. I'm here. Orion choked out, but all he could hear was the chain and the struggling. He floated closer, trying to see Sanjo. There were flashes of light in the grass. and Sanjo screamed. Laser bolts flew up into the air, and Orion hovered over them, shining his light as brightly as he could. The core grinder was hungrier for Orion. Sanjo rose from the grass and tackled the core grinder. One of the points from its jagged shape poked Sanjo hard. Sanjo pressed the laser pistol into the core grinder again and pulled the trigger. The light refracted in multiple directions. The pyramid pulled itself away from Sanjo. "We have to go," Orion shouted, and together with Sanjo, they fled into the woods. It wasn't long before they heard the terrifying sounds of the chain again, along with calls for Orion's name in a variety of voices. Sanjo was panting, and he looked at Orion. "That was pretty scary," he said plainly, trying not to show fear. "I could have been hurt, Sanjo. Why did you go there?" Orion asked, trying not to whisper too loudly. "I remember going up there before. It's what the woman wanted," Sanjo answered, still out of breath. "What is she saying now?" Orion asked, wondering what difference any of this made. "She's crying," Sanjo said, looking away. "I think she's hurt." Orion floated close to Sanjo. He had another burn on his face. "It got me with something, and it stung really bad," Sanjo said, touching his forehead. "We have to get back to the school. We have to tell someone there is a core grinder out here. We should have never." Orion was cut off. "No, I got a couple of items I want you to look at. Come on," Sanjo said, getting up confidently, sure he was out of the core grinder's reach. Together, they went back to the school to analyze the items Sanjo had found.
When I came to you, there were things that I wouldn't say. I will lie, I won't even say my name. The things that I do